Have you ever felt the world closing in on you? And that suffocating feeling when a project you poured your soul into collapses at the finish line. When a relationship you cherished unravels without warning, or when the ground beneath your feet, your career, your health, your sense of security suddenly feels like quicksand. You clench your fists, your jaw, your entire being, trying to hold on to something, anything that feels solid. In those moments of silent panic, we often ask ourselves a desperate question: why is this happening to me? We rage against the unfairness of it all. We bargain with a universe that doesn't seem to listen, and we sink into the despair of our own powerlessness. It's a profoundly human experience, this feeling of being a ship tossed on a merciless sea, with no control over the wind or the waves. But what if the question isn't, why is this happening? What if the most powerful question you could ever ask is, what in this moment is actually up to me? This is not a question of blame, but one of radical empowerment. It's a question that cuts through the noise of chaos and focuses on the quiet, unshakable center of your own will. It's the question that forms the very heart of the teachings of one of history's most formidable minds, Epictetus. Imagine a man born into the most powerless position imaginable, a slave in the mighty Roman Empire. His body was not his own, his property was non-existent, and his name was little more than a label meaning acquired. Yet this man, Epictetus, would go on to become one of the most influential thinkers on the nature of freedom, resilience, and inner peace the world has ever known. He didn't write down his philosophy in a quiet, secluded study, surrounded by scrolls and comfort. He taught it, lived it, and breathed it in a bustling classroom filled with ambitious young men destined to become Roman leaders. He taught with a raw, confrontational, and deeply compassionate energy. And his words were captured not by him, but by a devoted student named Arrian. These captured lessons have come down to us in two distinct but deeply connected forms: the Discourses and The Enchiridion. To encounter these works is not to read ancient history. It is to enlist in a boot camp for the soul. The Discourses are the sprawling, chaotic, and brilliant training grounds, the live fire exercises, the heated debates, the raw field notes from the front lines of the human condition. The Enchiridion, or the Handbook, is the result of that training, a distilled, pocket-sized manual for the philosophical soldier, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice in the battlefield of daily life. Together, they form a complete arsenal for anyone seeking to navigate the storms of the modern world, not with frantic desperation, but with a calm, unshakable strength. They teach us that while we may never control the sea, we have absolute command over the rudder of our own ship. This is the journey we are about to embark on, a journey into the heart of Epictetus's wisdom. To compare the raw ore of the Discourses with the sharpened blade of the Enchiridion, to learn how to read them not as texts but as tools, and to extract the life-altering lessons that have offered a lifeline to humanity for nearly 2,000 years. To truly understand the power of Epictetus, we must first step into the classroom of the Discourses. Forget the image of a dry academic lecture. Picture instead a dynamic, intense workshop led by a master craftsman of the soul. Arrian, in his introduction, tells us he tried to capture Epictetus's words exactly as he heard them, to preserve the raw, unfiltered energy of the man himself. The result is not a polished philosophical treatise. It's messy, it's repetitive, it's conversational, and it is electrifyingly alive. Reading the Discourses is like listening to a live album from your favorite band. You hear the improvisations, the direct call-outs to the audience, the moments of soaring insight, and the occasional off-key note that makes the whole performance more authentic and human. Epictetus doesn't just present ideas. He challenges, he prods, he ridicules, and he encourages his students in real time. He uses a military metaphor to describe his school. The students are soldiers in training, learning to wage war against the only enemies that can ever truly defeat them: their own flawed judgments, irrational fears, and unchecked desires. For he is the seasoned combat officer, scarred and wise, preparing his troops for the reality of the fight ahead. 5. At the very core of this training is the foundational principle of Stoicism, the one upon which everything else is built. It is the first and most crucial lesson for any soldier stepping onto this philosophical battlefield. There are things which are within our power, and there are things which are beyond our power, Epictetus declares. This is the famous dichotomy of control. It sounds simple, almost trivially so. Yet within this simple declaration lies the key to unlocking a profound and resilient form of freedom. 777. He explains that within our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, in a word, whatever is our own doing. Beyond our power are our bodies, our property, our reputations, our public offices, everything that is not our own doing. Think about how radical this is. Almost every ounce of our modern anxiety comes from a fundamental confusion between these two categories. We exhaust ourselves trying to control what other people think of us, a futile endeavor that is squarely in the beyond our power column. We tie our happiness to the health of our bodies or the size of our bank accounts, both of which are ultimately vulnerable to the whims of fortune. We despair when external events don't go our way, as if we ever had ultimate control over them in the first place. Epictetus argues that this confusion is the root of all our misery. He says that if you try to control what is not yours to control, you will be hindered, you will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault with both gods and men. But if you focus exclusively on what is within your power, no one will ever be able to compel you or restrain you. You will find fault with no one. You will accuse no one. You will do nothing against your will. You will have no real enemy, and no one will ever harm you, because no harm can ever touch your inner citadel. Let's bring this into the 21st century. Imagine a woman named Jessica, a talented project manager who has just spent 6 months leading her team on a critical company initiative. The day before the launch, a key technology partner declares bankruptcy, rendering half of their work unusable. The project is a catastrophic failure. Jessica is devastated. Her mind races. My boss will fire me. My team has lost all respect for me. My career is over. This is the storm. Now let's apply the dichotomy of control. What is beyond Jessica's power? The partner company's bankruptcy. The global economic conditions that led to it. Her boss's initial emotional reaction. The disappointment of her team members. The stock market's response to the news. None of these are her own doing. What is within her power? How she chooses to frame this event in her own mind. The way she communicates the news to her superiors and her team. Her commitment to salvaging what can be salvaged. Her decision to lead with integrity and transparency, rather than defensiveness and blame. Her choice to treat this as a devastating but valuable lesson, rather than a final verdict on her worth as a person. The Discourses would have Epictetus grabbing Jessica by the shoulders and saying, "You are weeping and wailing because a company went bankrupt? Did you control that company? Was its financial stability your own doing? No. So why do you act as if you have lost something that was truly yours? What is truly yours is your character, your reasoned choice, your ability to act with virtue in this moment. No one can take that from you. Now, stop crying over spilled milk and go do your duty." The power is not in changing the event, but in mastering her response to it. This leads directly to the second great theme of the Discourses, the power of our own judgments. This is perhaps the most revolutionary concept in all of Stoic thought, and Epictetus hammers it home relentlessly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things, he states, a phrase so potent it is echoed through centuries of philosophy and psychology. It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it that matters. 10. The event itself is neutral. The bankruptcy of the partner company is just a fact. It carries no inherent meaning of disaster or failure or humiliation. All of that is added by our own minds. We are the ones who apply the labels. We are the ones who write the story. And because we write the story, we have the power to change it. Jessica's initial story was, "This is a disaster and it proves I'm incompetent." This story generates feelings of shame, fear, and paralysis. But she has the power to write a different story. She can change her judgment. A Stoic-informed judgment would be, "This is an unexpected and challenging event that has rendered our current plan obsolete. It is an opportunity to demonstrate leadership under pressure and to discover a more resilient path forward." Notice the shift. The first judgment leads to suffering. The second leads to action. The external event is identical. The internal response is worlds apart. Epictetus teaches that we are not victims of the world. We are victims of our own undisciplined minds. And this is fantastic news, because our minds are the one thing we can, with practice, learn to control. Wine. So, how do we begin this training? The discourses are full of practical advice that feels like it was written for us today. One powerful exercise is to constantly practice separating events from your judgments about them. The next time you feel a rush of anger because someone cut you off in traffic, pause. Identify the event. A car moved into the space in front of mine. Now, identify your judgment. That driver is a disrespectful jerk who is intentionally trying to ruin my day and has put me in danger. See the difference? The event is a simple fact. The judgment is a whole narrative of malice and personal offense that you've layered on top of it. Is it possible the driver was rushing to the hospital? Is it possible they simply made a mistake? Your anger doesn't come from their action. It comes from your interpretation of their action. By practicing this separation, you create a small gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies your freedom. You can choose a different judgment. That driver is in a hurry. I hope they get where they're going safely. It doesn't affect my journey in any meaningful way. The disturbance vanishes. This is the work. It's not about grand philosophical pronouncements. It's about the gritty, moment-to-moment practice of policing your own thoughts. It's about recognizing that you are the sole author of your own emotional weather. You can choose to create a hurricane of rage over a minor traffic incident, or you can choose to maintain the calm, sunny skies of tranquility. The choice, Epictetus insists, is always yours. The discourses are the detailed manual, the textbook, the case studies, and the professor's Socratic questioning all rolled into one. They are where you go to understand the deep theory, to see the principles applied in dozens of different scenarios, and to feel the passionate, living voice of the teacher himself. If the discourses are the sprawling, vibrant, and sometimes chaotic university where Stoic principles are debated and explored in depth, the Enchiridion is the hardened, battle-ready graduate. Its very name in Greek means that which is held in the hand, a dagger or a handbook. It is the ultimate field guide. Compiled by the same devoted student, Arian, the Enchiridion is not a new philosophy. It is a radical act of distillation. Arian has taken the thousands of words, the meandering conversations, and the passionate exhortations of the discourses, and condensed them into 53 short, sharp, and intensely practical maxims. There is no fat here. There is no casual conversation. Every single line is designed for one purpose: to be a tool for living a good life, right here, right now. It is the emergency toolkit for the soul. Reading the discourses is like having a long, transformative conversation with a wise mentor. Reading the Enchiridion is like receiving a direct order from a commanding officer in the heat of battle. It's designed to be memorized, internalized, and applied in the blink of an eye when you are faced with fear, temptation, or despair, while the discourses explain the why with rich context and argument. The Enchiridion focuses with laser-like intensity on the what. It takes the foundational principles we've already explored and transforms them into active commands. Consider the dichotomy of control. The discourses spend pages exploring its nuances. The Enchiridion opens with it, stating it as a stark, undeniable fact, and then immediately moves to the operational command. Your task is to concern yourself with the former, and to leave the latter alone. It's not a suggestion. It's a directive. The book is structured to relentlessly pull your attention back to this central task. It's as if Epictetus is constantly grabbing you by the lapels and saying, "Is this within your control?" No, then it is nothing to you. Move on. One of the key themes that shines with particular clarity in the Enchiridion is the discipline of assent. This is the practice of accepting reality as it is, without fighting it or wishing it were different. This isn't a passive or fatalistic resignation. It's an active and powerful choice. Epictetus gives us one of the most famous and challenging directives in all of philosophy. Demand not that events should happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. 12. Think about the sheer amount of energy we waste every day wishing things were different. I wish it wasn't raining. I wish my boss was more competent. I wish I hadn't gotten sick before my vacation. This wishing is a form of mental friction against the unchangeable reality of the present moment. It produces nothing but frustration and distress. The Stoic, by contrast, practices what Nietzsche would later call amor fati, a love of one's fate. This means embracing everything that happens, the good and the bad, as necessary and even desirable. Why desirable? Because every event, no matter how challenging, is an opportunity to practice virtue. The rain is a chance to practice patience. The difficult boss is a chance to practice forbearance and professionalism. The illness is a chance to practice resilience and gratitude for the health you do have. The events are raw material, and your virtue is the fire that forges them into something of value. Let's imagine a young entrepreneur named David. He's just launched his first app, a project he believes will change the world. He's poured his life savings into it. He desires a spectacular launch, viral downloads, and glowing media coverage. The reality? The launch is met with almost complete silence. A handful of downloads, one mediocre review. The world he wished for did not materialize. The world that did happen is one of apparent failure. David has two choices. He can fight reality. He can despair, blame the algorithm, curse the reviewers, and sink into a depression fueled by the gap between his wishes and the truth. Or he can follow the command of the Enchiridion. He can wish for things to happen as they do happen. This means looking at the situation with clear eyes and saying, okay, this is the reality. The market has given me data. The data is that my current strategy is not working. This is not the end. It is information. My desire for a viral launch was outside of my control and a source of suffering. My new desire, which is within my control, is to learn from this data and improve the product. He transforms a perceived catastrophe into a curriculum. He assents to reality, and in doing so, he frees himself from the prison of his own expectations and empowers himself to act effectively. This leads us to another core discipline emphasized in the Enchiridion, the discipline of desire and aversion. Epictetus provides a stark warning. If you shun sickness or death or poverty, you will run the risk of wretchedness. 13. This is profoundly counterintuitive to our modern sensibilities. We are taught to desire health, long life, and wealth, and to feel a strong aversion to their opposites. But Epictetus points out that all of these things are largely outside of our ultimate control. 14. You can live a perfectly healthy lifestyle and still get sick. You can be the safest driver and get into an accident. You can be a brilliant investor and lose everything in a market crash. To place your happiness in the acquisition of things you can't guarantee, and your peace in the avoidance of things you can't prevent, is to build your house on sand. It is a guaranteed recipe for a life of anxiety and disappointment. The solution? We must redirect our desires and aversions. The Enchiridion commands us to withdraw our aversion from all things not in our control, like sickness, death, or what others say about us, and redirect it only toward things that are within our control, our own negative judgments, our own weak character, our own vicious actions. Likewise, we should curb our desire for external things and desire only one thing, to live a life of virtue and integrity. If your greatest desire is to be a person of courage, wisdom, and justice, nothing and no one can ever stop you from achieving that. It is a victory that is available to you in every single moment, regardless of your external circumstances. To make this practical, the Enchiridion offers small, powerful exercises. One is the practice of negative visualization. When you are enjoying something you love, a beautiful piece of pottery, a walk with your child, remind yourself of its nature. With regard to whatever objects either delight the mind or contribute to use or are tenderly beloved, remind yourself of what nature they are, Epictetus advises. When you kiss your child, he suggests, whisper to yourself, "I am kissing a mortal." This sounds morbid, but its purpose is the exact opposite. It is not meant to diminish your joy, but to enhance it. By remembering the impermanent nature of all things, you appreciate them more deeply in the present moment, and you prepare your mind for the possibility of their loss. If your child gets sick, you will not be utterly shattered by an event you pretended could never happen. You will be prepared to face it with courage and love. Similarly, another famous passage instructs, "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it,' but 'I have restored it.' Has your child died? It is restored. Has your wife died? She is restored." This is perhaps the most difficult and misunderstood passage in Stoicism. It is not a call to be cold or unfeeling. It is a profound reframing of our relationship to the world. It asks us to see ourselves not as owners, but as stewards. The people and things we love are not our possessions to be lost. They are gifts on loan from the universe, to be cherished for as long as we have them, and to be given back with gratitude when the time comes. The Enchiridion is full of these potent mental shifts. It is a book of spiritual technology, designed to rewire your brain for resilience, peace, and unshakable purpose. It is the perfect complement to the Discourses. One is the university, the other is the sword. You need the education to understand the principles of combat, but when the enemy is at the gates, it is the sword you reach for. To truly see the combined power of the Discourses and the Enchiridion in action, let us move from individual principles to a holistic case study. Imagine a modern leader, a CEO named Maria, at the helm of a successful tech company. For years, everything has gone her way: growth, innovation, and a stellar reputation. Then overnight, a storm hits. A competitor launches a disruptive new technology. A key executive is poached, and a scathing article alleges unethical practices in her supply chain. The company's stock plummets, employees are panicking, and the board is demanding answers. The world Maria had so carefully constructed is on the verge of collapse. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is a crucible. In the first 24 hours, Maria is reeling. She feels the sting of betrayal, the humiliation of the public criticism, and the cold fear of failure. Her initial untrained reaction is to lash out. She wants to fire the PR team, sue the journalist, and work her engineers to the bone to beat the competitor. Her mind is a tempest of judgments. This is a catastrophe. My reputation is ruined. I'm a failure. This is the voice of disturbance, the voice that Epictetus in the Discourses would immediately challenge. The first step in her Stoic response is to retreat to the inner citadel and apply the dichotomy of control. She takes out a piece of paper and draws a line down the middle. On the left side, "Not in my control," she writes. The competitor's actions, the journalist's opinion, the stock market's panic, the past decisions that led here. On the right side, "In my control," she writes. My response to the board, my communication with the team, my strategy for the next 90 days, my personal integrity, my choice to face this with courage. Just by doing this, the overwhelming chaos begins to organize itself into a manageable problem. She stops wasting energy on the things she cannot change and focuses her entire being on the things she can. With this newfound clarity, she tackles her own judgments, the core lesson of the Discourses. She actively replaces the story of "I'm a failure" with "I am a leader facing a significant challenge." She replaces "My reputation is ruined" with "My reputation is being tested," which is an opportunity to show what it's truly made of. 17. This is not mere positive thinking. It is a strategic reframing that shifts her from a state of victimhood to a state of agency. She has separated the external events from her view of them, and in that space she finds her power. Now she is ready to act, and this is where she pulls the Enchiridion from her mental toolkit. She needs direct, actionable commands. She recalls the maxim, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." 18. What does she want to be in this moment? She wants to be a leader of integrity, courage, and wisdom. So what must she do? Her actions now flow from this disciplined intention. Instead of hiding, she calls an all-hands meeting. She speaks to her team with transparency, not blame. She acknowledges the severity of the situation, assenting to reality as the Enchiridion commands 19. She lays out the facts as she knows them and takes responsibility for the company's position. This is her exercising the virtue of justice. She then outlines a clear, focused plan for the immediate future. Not a guarantee of success, but a commitment to a course of action. This is the virtue of wisdom. Finally, she faces the storm head-on, addressing the press and the board with a calm resolve. focusing not on excuses for the past, but on a virtuous path for the future. This is the virtue of courage. Throughout this process, she is practicing the discipline of desire. Her desire is no longer for a rising stock price or glowing press. Those are externals. Her desire is to be a good leader, and in every one of these difficult moments, she is succeeding. The ultimate outcome for the company is uncertain. It may survive and become stronger, or it may fail. But for Maria the Stoic, this is secondary. The real victory is internal. She has met a crisis not with panic, but with principle. She has proven that no external event, no matter how severe, can force her to compromise her character. As Epictetus would say, no man is free who is not master of himself. 20. Maria, by mastering her judgments, desires, and actions, has found freedom in the very heart of the storm. She has used the deep understanding from the Discourses to diagnose her situation, and the sharp practical tools of the Enchiridion to perform the necessary surgery on her own mind and actions. This is the philosophy not as a theory, but as a living, breathing practice. Given that these two texts are not novels to be consumed, but manuals to be practiced, the way we approach reading them is critical. To read the Discourses and the Enchiridion from cover to cover as you would a history book is to miss their entire purpose. It would be like trying to learn how to swim by reading a book about fluid dynamics without ever getting in the water. The knowledge is meant to be embodied, not just accumulated. Therefore, a strategic and patient approach is essential. Let's start with the Discourses. My advice is to treat it like you are actually enrolling in Epictetus's school. Do not try to read it in a week. Instead, commit to reading one discourse, one chapter per day, or even one every few days. Before you begin, have a journal ready. This is your workbook. As you read, you are not a passive observer. You are an active student in the classroom. When Epictetus poses a question to one of his students, pause and answer it yourself in your journal. When he offers a challenging piece of advice, don't just nod along. Argue with him. Write down your objections, your doubts, your fears. This sounds too harsh, Epictetus. How can a person not grieve? Or this is easy for you to say, but what about in my specific situation at work? By engaging in this internal dialogue, you are doing the real work of philosophy. You are taking his general principles and testing them against the specific realities of your own life. After you read the discourse, spend the rest of your day looking for opportunities to apply its central lesson. If the discourse was about withholding judgment, make it a one-day experiment. Notice every time you leap to a conclusion about someone or something, and gently bring yourself back to the facts. The discourses are your textbook, your case study library, and your professor all in one. Use them as such. Let them be a slow, steady guide that transforms your thinking over months, not a source of trivia you forget in days. The Enchiridion, by contrast, should be treated like a daily prescription or a morning meditation. Its brevity and power are designed for this kind of focused, repetitive practice. Here is a powerful way to use it. At the beginning of each week, select one single passage from the Enchiridion. Just one. Write it down on a note card and put it in your pocket or on your desk. For that entire week, that is your theme. For example, you might choose chapter 5. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. 21 every morning. For just 2 minutes, read that sentence and reflect on what it means. Then, as you go through your day, your mission is to catch that principle in action. When your train is delayed and you feel frustration rising, you hear the echo. It is not the delay that disturbs me, but my view of it. When a colleague criticizes your work, you remember, it is not their words that disturb me, but my judgment that their words are an attack on my worth. Each time you notice this, you are performing one rep of a mental push-up. You are strengthening your philosophical muscles. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to practice. By focusing on one single principle for an entire week, you begin to internalize it at a deep level. It moves from being an interesting idea in your head to a reflexive habit in your soul. The true magic happens when you combine these two approaches. The Discourses and the Enchiridion are designed to work in synergy. The Enchiridion gives you the what, the sharp, memorable rule. The Discourses give you the why, the rich context, the stories, the arguments that support the rule. Think of it this way. Imagine you are practicing with your single passage from the Enchiridion for the week, but you find yourself really struggling with it. You understand the idea of not being disturbed by your judgments, but in the heat of the moment, you just can't seem to do it. That evening, you can turn to the Discourses and find the chapters where Epictetus discusses this very topic at length. You can read the stories, the analogies, the detailed explanations. The Discourses will put flesh on the bones of the Enchiridion's command. They provide the deeper understanding and the motivational fire that refuels your practice for the next day. The Enchiridion is your daily map, pointing you in the right direction. The Discourses are the detailed geographical survey, explaining the terrain and helping you navigate when you get lost. Used together, they provide both the daily discipline and the profound insight necessary to truly transform your life. This isn't just reading. It is a way of life, a daily training regimen for achieving what the Stoics valued above all else, a state of serene, unshakable, and virtuous flourishing. We began this journey with the image of a person lost in a storm, feeling powerless against the raging winds of fortune. We've walked through the bustling classroom of the Discourses, hearing the raw, passionate voice of a former slave teaching the sons of Rome what it truly means to be free. We've held in our hands the Enchiridion, a hardened, practical tool designed for the daily battles of life. We've seen through the stories of Jessica, David, and Maria how these ancient principles are not historical artifacts, but are as relevant and potent today as they were 2 millennia ago. They offer a clear and actionable path out of the anxiety, frustration, and powerlessness that define so much of modern life. So, what is the final, overarching lesson from these 2 masterpieces? It is that true freedom is not an external condition, but an internal achievement. 22. It is not about bending the world to your will, but about mastering your own will so that it aligns with the world as it is. It is the profound realization that the only things that can ever truly harm you, your own greed, your own anger, your own fear, your own foolishness, are entirely within your own power to control. 23. Everything else, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, are merely external events. They can harm your body, they can take your property, they can damage your reputation, but they are utterly powerless to touch your character, your inner citadel, unless you grant them permission. The Stoicism of Epictetus is not about grim-faced endurance or the suppression of emotion. 24. It is the exact opposite. It is about clearing away the mental clutter of false judgments and runaway desires, so that you can experience a profound and lasting state of tranquility and joy, a state the Greeks called eudaimonia. It is a flourishing that comes from living in accordance with your own highest nature. The Discourses provide the rich, detailed theory, the inspiring Socratic dialogue that convinces your intellect that this path is wise. The Enchiridion provides the daily commands, the practical exercises that train your will to walk that path. One is the soul, the other is the body of this powerful philosophy. To read one without the other is to have an incomplete picture. To read them both without putting them into practice is to miss the point entirely. Epictetus himself would say that taking pride in simply understanding his words is like a sheep boasting to the shepherd about how much grass it has eaten. The point is not the consumption of the grass, but its digestion into wool and milk. The point is not to be able to quote Epictetus, but to live like him. So, I encourage you to begin. Pick up these texts not as a scholar, but as an apprentice. Approach the Discourses with a curious and open mind, ready to engage in a conversation that will challenge your deepest assumptions. Approach the Enchiridion as a personal trainer for your soul, ready to do the daily work that builds real strength. Do not be discouraged by the difficulty. This is a lifelong practice, not a weekend seminar. You will fail, you will forget, you will fall back into old habits. This is part of the training. As Epictetus reminds us, no great thing is created suddenly. You are forging a new character, one of resilience, integrity, and peace. It is the most important work you will ever do. The world will continue to provide its storms, its chaos, and its challenges. That is its nature. But you, armed with this ancient wisdom, will have an anchor. You will know where to draw the line between what you can control and what you cannot. You will know how to find freedom in acceptance, strength in virtue, and a calm, unshakable peace in the very eye of the hurricane. The journey is not easy, but the destination is nothing less than a life of true freedom and profound flourishing. The map is in your hands. The path is before you. It is time to take the first step,